Now, to everyone's surprise, the ship didn't come to a stop, but instead coasted to a halt directly over the city of Johannesburg.
The doors didn't open for 3 months. It just hovered there. Nobody could get in.
Suppuration.
All right. Also, you should know on my right.
What is happening to my arm? What is happening?
The story begins 20 years ago when a massive alien spaceship as big as a city appeared above Johannesburg, South Africa, and stopped right on top of a building, which triggered panic across the world because no one knew what the ship wanted. For 3 months, the people of the city lived in fear, but nothing ever came out. So the government made a bold move and sent a team to investigate. They cut through the ship's hull and went inside, where they found a vast chamber holding over 1 million aliens that looked like human-sized prawns, and they were all starving. Seeing their desperation, humans felt pity, and the government decided to help by setting up a temporary camp beneath the ship. Then helicopters transported the aliens to this area where they were given food and water because their survival was hanging by a thread. The government had no long-term plan, so the aliens stayed in the camp-building shanties and growing in number because they had nowhere else to go. Over time, the camp turned into a massive slum called District 9. Eventually, the government handed control over to MNU, the world's largest weapons manufacturer, and they fenced the entire area with barbed wire and posted military forces outside to keep the aliens isolated from humans. But questions still hung in the air about why the aliens came to Earth, whether they were here for help or something else, because no one really knew. The aliens in District 9 showed very dumb. They couldn't think clearly or make complex decisions. So experts believed they were just workers, and their leaders probably died from starvation. Still, some believed there was something more going on because early on, a large chunk of the spaceship had broken off and crashed to Earth, and it might have been the command module used to control the entire ship, but it was never found. Then MNU started confiscating alien weapons, calling them illegal, and any alien caught with one could be arrested because their technology was way too dangerous for humanity. But the aliens were always hungry no matter how much they ate, so they began wandering into the city, digging through human garbage and eating shoes, even car tires, and sometimes setting vehicles on fire or derailing trains because they acted without thinking. And people got frustrated because the aliens had become a constant problem. After 20 years of this, the public finally demanded that the government take action, and MNU responded by planning to move the aliens to a new camp, which is 200 kilometers away in a remote wasteland. But relocating 1.8 million aliens was a massive challenge. So MNU's chief assigned the job to Wikus, an employee, and also his son-in-law, because Wikus worked in alien affairs and had experience negotiating with them. He learned their language and saw this mission as a big career move, so he entered District 9 with MNU's armed security forces tasked with handing out eviction notices giving the aliens, and he needed their signatures going door to door, while a cameraman followed him filming everything for a documentary because MNU wanted the whole process recorded. Inside, the slum things were chaotic. The aliens were aggressive from hunger, and they attacked animals, crushing bones like it was nothing because their strength was terrifying. When Wikus and the team stepped out of their vehicle, the aliens scattered in panic, and one even started chewing on a tire like it was gum. So a soldier approached with a gun to stop the alien, but the alien kicked him, severing his arm. But still, Wikus stayed calm because he understood the aliens' aggressive nature. He knew they were desperate for food, especially cat food, which they craved. So he used it as bait, offering cans to get their claw marks on the notices, because it was the easiest way to get them to comply. And Wikus stayed alert for criminals because District 9 is abandoned by the government. That's why it's become a haven for lawbreakers. And a dangerous Nigerian criminal named Obasanjo ran a gang there, trading cat food, meat, alcohol, even women. And the aliens loved cat food so much that they traded their weapons to Obasanjo, even giving him an advanced robot for just 100 packets. And these weapons were deadly capable of destroying a human with a single shot, because their technology was far beyond human understanding. But Obasanjo couldn't use the weapons and robot because they only activated with alien DNA or someone with their genetic code to operate them. In a twisted attempt to gain their power, Obasanjo ate alien flesh, thinking it would let him use their arsenal. And even though he was disabled, his influence was so feared that Wikus avoided his territory, slipping past quietly. Then Wikus enters an alien shack and discovers a shocking sight. Countless alien eggs thriving inside, connected by pipes to animal carcasses hanging from the ceiling, because the flesh provided nutrients for the alien offspring. But producing kids was illegal for the aliens, so Wikus quickly calls the alien population control team, who set the eggs ablaze and they burst like popcorn under the flames.
So that's the sound that you are hearing with the popping.
Meanwhile, another incident unfolds in District 9, where an alien named Christopher, identified by a name tag on his head because MNU assigned names to all aliens for easy tracking, and they searches through garbage with his son and a companion. Then Christopher's son finds a container-like object and they rush back to their shack, where Christopher has built a hidden laboratory. Inside, Christopher opens the container, revealing a chemical substance and processes it through filtration, creating a black fluid stored in a device. Because this fluid is precious, the result of 20 years of relentless effort. Then Christopher and his companion discuss their plan to use the fluid for a grand purpose. But then Wikus and his team arrive at the shack, catching them off guard. But Christopher panics, hides the fluid-filled device, and sends his companion to confront the intruders because he fears discovery. The companion tries to drive Wikus' team away, but raising a suspicion, and Wikus, using his gun, forces the alien outside, then enters the shack to search while Christopher watches from a hidden spot because he's desperate to protect his secret. But Wikus finds the laboratory grows stunned. Then he discovers the black fluid device in a box, puzzled by its purpose. Accidentally pressing a button, he triggers the device, spraying the fluid onto his face, and he chokes, struggling to breathe because the substance overwhelms him. After wiping his face, he feels brief relief and seizes the device, sending it to MNU's lab for analysis. Then he finds a cache of alien weapons because Christopher's shack is a hub of forbidden activity. So Wikus confronts the companion outside, demanding answers about the weapons, but the alien in a panic attack on Wikus and throws him aside. Then a security team in a helicopter shoots the alien, but Wikus' arm badly injured, but he bandages it and keeps going on work. Elsewhere, Christopher, grieving his companion's loss, and flees to another shack with his son who plays with a holographic device, then shuts the door because danger looms. Soon, Wikus' team reaches this shack, pulls Christopher outside, and Wikus peers inside, spotting numerous computers. He realized that Christopher is a technician and wondering what he's planning because the setup is sophisticated. Before he can question Christopher, Wikus' condition worsens, and he vomits violently, a frothy substance pouring from his mouth because the black fluid's effects are getting worse. He halts the day's work, heads back to MNU headquarters, but stopping at a restaurant to order heaps of food, devouring it like a starving man, and then notices black fluid dripping from his nose, identical to Christopher's device, because something is terribly wrong. His health deteriorates, but Wikus pushes through with his work until at the office, one of his fingernails falls off, revealing a rotting finger. And he panics, rushing to the bathroom where another nail detaches with a slight tug because his body is changing. Returning home, he finds a surprise his wife and parents have thrown a birthday party, but he acts normal to hide his fear. But when he steps forward to cut the cake, black fluid sprays from his mouth and he collapses because the transformation is speeding up. After awakening in a hospital, he sees a doctor removing the bandage from his injured arm. And then the sight horrifies them both. An alien claw has replaced his hand because the fluid is rewriting his DNA. Wikus freaks out and the doctor alerts MNU, who storm in, seizing him and taking him to a secret research lab because they see him as a specimen. In the lab, MNU scientists dissect aliens to understand their DNA, seeking a way for humans to wield alien weapons, which only activate with alien genetics. But they also treat Wikus like an animal because his hybrid DNA is a breakthrough. They inject a thick needle into his alien claw, causing excruciating pain, and confirm the claw is part of his body because the transformation is permanent. Ordered by MNU's chief, who is Wikus' father-in-law, so scientists torture him for hours. Discovering his DNA is shifting fully alien, and they take him to a hall to test alien weapons because his hybrid nature can unlock them. Then, forcing a gun into his hand, they watch it that the gun is activated and working. Then, they make him test more weapons on animals. But then they make him test on an innocent alien because their experiments are ruthless. But Wikus begs them to spare the alien, offering compliance. But a scientist shocks him, triggering the gun, and then alien turn into pieces. And the scientists see Wikus as a treasure because his mixed DNA could unlock all alien weapons. But they know he'll soon be fully alien, rendering his DNA useless. So they decide to dissect him alive to preserve his body parts, and his father-in-law agrees by the profit of selling alien weapon technology, because greed overrides family. But Wikus pleads for his life, but his father-in-law signs his death warrant, and scientists strap him to a stretcher, preparing to cut open his chest because their goal is paramount. But Wikus, begging for mercy, breaks free, attacking the scientists in a rage, and holding the chief scientist at knife point, and escaping MNU headquarters. Then MNU security forces pursue him because he's now a fugitive. But starving and transforming, Wikus hides at a restaurant. He sees a news report where his father-in-law spreads a lie claiming that Wikus' transformation stems from illicit relations with a female alien, and warning that touching him spreads the infection. And MNU releases a fake photo to support the story because they aim to isolate him. Seeing him, terrified customers flee, and the restaurant owner shoots at Wikus, forcing him to escape because even civilians are against him. So he heads to District 9, but steals a phone and then crosses the barbed wire, and he also buys cat food from Nigerian mafia to curb his hunger. But then his 2 teeth fall out, plunging him into despair because his humanity is slipping away. And after calling his wife, he explains his father-in-law's betrayal, denying the alien affair, but she trusts her father more and hanging up. Then Wikus, in desperation, tries to hack off his alien claw with an axe, but stops after cutting one finger because the pain is unbearable. And after seeing MNU helicopters approaching District 9, Wikus flees into a shack, which happens to be Christopher's, where Christopher frets over his lost black fluid, and Wikus begs for shelter, but Christopher hesitates until noticing Wikus's alien claw, realizing the fluid caused it because the connection is clear. But Wikus faints from pain, and upon waking finds himself in a chamber where Christopher demands to know where the fluid-filled device is, because it's the cause of Wikus's transformation, and Wikus admits he sent it to MNU's lab, devastating Christopher because it's irreplaceable. Then Wikus notices he's in the spaceship's hidden command module, and Christopher's son reveals the black fluid is fuel for the module, which could restart their ship, allowing them to return to their planet because it's their only hope. Then Wikus, excited, assumes Christopher's intelligence proves some aliens are advanced and suggests making more fuel. But Christopher explains it took 20 years to create that small amount, making it impossible now. And Christopher adds that with the fuel, he could reverse Wikus's transformation using a machine on the ship. Then Wikus gets thrilled and asks how. So Christopher clarifies the machine needs the fueled module to connect to the ship, meaning they must retrieve the fluid from MNU, even if it means infiltrating the lab because it's their only chance. But Wikus, knowing returning to MNU is suicidal, but his decaying body and desire to be human drive him to agree. And he seeks weapons from Obasanjo's gang, unaware of the danger, because the rumor of his transformation has reached the criminal. And Obasanjo, believing eating Wikus's alien arm will grant him alien powers. So he orders his men to capture and dismember him, and they attack, wounding him. But Wikus grabs an alien gun, blasting them apart and escaping with weapons because his survival instinct kicks in. After joining Christopher, they storm MNU headquarters, detonating explosives and fighting through security to reach the lab, where they find the fluid device, but Christopher freezes, seeing his dissected comrades, and Wikus urges him to flee because time is short. And MNU's colonel and his team attack relentlessly, but Wikus's alien gun auto-targets, shredding enemies. And after persuading Christopher, they escape to District 9 because the mission succeeds. Then Colonel, ordered to capture Wikus alive, pursues them to Christopher's shack where the command module is hidden, and Christopher sends his son to prepare it while setting up computers. Wikus asks how long it'll take to cure him once they reach the ship, and Christopher reveals it'll take 3 years because he must first save his people by returning to his planet for help and promising to return and cure Wikus. But Wikus, enraged, knocks Christopher out with his gun, taking the fuel to the module, lying to Christopher's son that his father is fine, and installs the fuel, activating the module because desperation drives him. But the colonel reaches the shack, threatening Christopher for Wikus's location, and Christopher points to the module but refusing to open it to protect his son inside. But the colonel tries to force it, and Wikus, in the module's pilot seat, struggles to control it, then inserting his hands into fluid-filled containers that act as controls, and lifts off because he's determined to escape. But Colonel's team fires a rocket, crashing the module, severely injuring Wikus, and then Colonel captures him and Christopher, heading to MNU's lab. But Christopher worries for his son, who is still in the module, and Wikus feels all is lost because hope fades. Suddenly, Obasanjo's gang attacks the Colonel's team, crashing a truck into their vehicle, because Obasanjo craves Wikus's flesh, and they kidnap him to their base, where Obasanjo prepares to eat his arm, but as a thug raises a dagger, an alien robot controlled by Christopher's son from the module attacks, obliterating Obasanjo and his men, because its power is unmatched. Then robot opens, and Christopher's son activates the mothership, positioning it above the module, moving it for the first time in 20 years, stunning the city because it's a historic moment. Then Colonel at the shack fires tear gas to flush Wikus out, and with no options, Wikus enters the robot, linking it to his mind, and tries to escape, but seeing Christopher about to be killed, he returns, rescuing him from the Colonel's grasp and guiding him to the module despite heavy gunfire weakening his robotic suit. Then Wikus delivers Christopher to the module, and Christopher urges him to come. But Wikus refuses, knowing his sacrifice ensures their escape, and Christopher, like a brother, promises to return in 3 years to cure him because their bond is deep. Then Christopher boards the module, and his son aligns the mothership, which pulls the module inside because the plan succeeds. Then Wikus destroys the Colonel's forces but is gravely wounded and his robot fails, forcing him out. But then Colonel aims to kill him, enraged by his team's annihilation. But a pack of hungry aliens swarms, tearing the Colonel apart, and Wikus is spared because the threat passes. Then Christopher departs in the mothership, leaving behind 2 million stranded aliens. But Johannesburg's residents feel relief because the ship is gone. And Wikus' story spreads worldwide, but yet no one sees him again, and many believe he's dead unaware. But he's fully transformed an alien living in District 9 because it's his only home. And film ends here, so don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and do a comment for next movie.